Hello and welcome back to another Crochet Swatch Saturday. Today we are going to be reviewing Coboo by Lion Brand and seeing how it stacks up. If you're not familiar, my name is Nicole Bandis. We are going to be here reviewing some of our favorite yarns, doing a little bit of swatch on each of them, and seeing how they go. If you just want to get to the nuts and bolts, go ahead and check out the timestamp below, and we will fast forward all the way until where I actually give you the numbers. But I highly encourage you to stick along for the ride. And as I'm talking about it, give it your own thought and how you would rank it. Because I got to tell you, I get recommendations all the time on how to change my rating system. And the ratings are for me. Obviously, you can take something from that, but I do encourage you to kind of explore as I'm talking about things and say, well, based on what she's saying, this is how I would rank it, and then you can give it your very own score at the same time, instead of just relying on mine. Plus, you pick up some things and have some fun along the way. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay, so Coboo is a Lion Brand yarn, and if you're not familiar with it, it is often sold right next to Truboo, which is a 100% bamboo yarn. Coboo, though, is 51% cotton and 49% rayon from bamboo. It is a lightweight or a DK weight yarn, and it is recommending a 4mm crochet hook. So let's go ahead and dive in. I've got my trusty 4mm here and start to do a little bit of a swatch. Now, for some reason, I've got some yarn already pulled out. Not sure what I think I was doing a swatch for a project. So we'll go ahead and get started. For those of you that this is your first time, the way that these videos and reviews work, I do a single crochet swatch, and then I do a double crochet swatch. And we talk about the yarn as I'm working them up, just to kind of, see what my first impressions are. Speaking of first impressions, I have to say that compared to like a Truboo, this is definitely not as soft. It doesn't have that oh my gosh feeling that a full bamboo yarn does. That being said, it also isn't terrible for a cotton. It does not have, like, there are great cottons that are like a Pima cotton, and then there are those Lily and cream, whatever, sugar and cream, we'll get it there, that are just very, very rough. Okay, so on my first stitch there, don't know if you can see that, I already got a split, like right even the very first into the chain. So we're going to keep track of that. If I get too many splits, it's going to get a really, really bad rating, right? Because we don't like splits. And the whole reason we love bamboo is also, it's that softness factor. But we hate bamboo because it is so darn splitty that it is hard to deal with. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that. I do have some reviews already for the Truboo. I have some reviews for other bamboos, and I will make sure that I share those so you can check out all of the different reviews for those specific kind of yarns if you're really interested in the bamboo-based yarns, like I am, because they're so soft and they're so drapey. Sometimes they're almost a little too drapey, which we also have to watch out for. So I'm thinking, though, with this cotton in there as the primary base, it's not going to have that overly drapey effect that a full bamboo would have. All right, so we've got our first row done. And let's talk about some of the fun stuff about this yarn. First of all, It is, like I said, it is a Lion Brand yarn, and on the label it says that it is approved by Knitted Knockers. If you're not familiar with what Knitted Knockers is a nonprofit organization that makes false boobies. Let's put it that way. They're items that women who have gone through a mastectomy can insert into their bras to have that look and feel of still having a breast. So Knitted Knockers is one of the brands, or is the nonprofit, and they have certain yarns, such as the Coboo, that are approved to make those. So if you want to make those, there's definitely some information on the label, or you can just Google Knitted Knockers. And there are also crochet patterns for that. It's not just knit. So you can, if you're a crocheter, you can still participate and get some fun out of that. All right, we're gonna put, whoops, we just had a little baby born. All right, we're gonna set baby aside there. And like I said, the feel. Okay, let's talk a little bit here about the color range. And most of the Coboo colors are fairly muted. There's only 24 colors that I could tell. They're fairly muted, fairly they're not real saturated. I tend to really like the more saturated over the more pastel-y, more muted colors. And there are a couple, like there's a magenta that's really pretty bright. But overall, the colors are a little bit on the lacking side there. This colorway right here, it's kind of almost giving me macrame vibes. Not in the feel. It certainly does not feel like macrame. Macrame, is it yarn? I don't do macrame, so I can't say whether that's called yarn or rope or whatever that is. So it looks like the old traditional macrame. I actually got this colorway specific to make a summer wow, words today, cover up. So I have enough of this to make a summer cover up for beach season. I actually have plans to go to Myrtle Beach and the Outer Banks this summer, so there's going to be plenty of opportunities for me to wear a nice cover up, which means that'll probably be one of my spring makes this year. And I would love to know from you what you've used Coboo for. Share with me in the comments below whether or not you love it, what your thoughts on it are, how it's worked up in projects for you, and especially how it's washed up for you. Because I'm limited a little bit in these tests on how much I can actually do something that's wash worthy. I mean, I can hand wash it once and let it dry, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't have quite the wear test that I would like to do on these overall. So I sort of rely on you guys and how it works up for you, and giving me your input on that. All right, we got one more row of this single crochet here. And so far, knock on some pretend fake wood down here for my desktop, that I've only gotten one split. That's pretty good for a bamboo-based yarn. So we'll finish this. Okay. I gotta say, I am pleasantly surprised with how this is working up so far. It is definitely not, oops, there, look at that. Oof. It still has that ability to snag. It definitely does not have quite the dramatic effect that a full bamboo would have. Let me get out my bamboo swatches and kind of share. So if we compare it to the Coboo, it's definitely a bit on the bulkier side. This is Coboo here, this pink is, and this is your Coboo. They're the same, they're rated as the same weight of yarn, but you can see, as is typical with a cotton-based yarn, it's chunkier. It's got more oomph to it. So let's do kind of a swatch test or a gauge test here. And if we lie it down on the DK, it definitely fits in the DK. It's close on the worsted versus the Coboo is DK almost a sport weight. So the Coboo is going to be closer to a worsted, whereas the Coboo is going to be closer to a sport weight. And that's going to definitely make up for that chunkiness in there. So you definitely want to consider that in your projects. So we'll set that over there. Move that over there. And of course, it's going to work up differently. There are going to be some projects that this is not going to work for if you're looking for a traditional DK because it is on the chunkier side. So, yeah, you know, keep that in mind. All right, let's do a swatch of our double crochet and see how that looks. Lost my stitch there. Now, washability, this is just fine across the board. It's pretty easy. It is listed as cold water wash. You can dry it, no problem. Because it's cotton, I would definitely consider drying it on a cooler cycle instead of, you know, like a delicate cycle instead of like the full heat. But it can be washed, so that's, you know, just fine as far as that goes. Hopefully it doesn't shrink. I don't know. I mean, it's cotton, so there's definitely that chance. But if we listen to the instructions, it says that it should be okay. Again, if you have experience with that, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Does it shrink? Is it shrink? Or on the alternative, if it's got that bamboo property, does it stretch? Because the other issue with bamboo is that it's so drapey and it has so, look, I did another, there's another split. So that's 2 splits. We're going to leave that in there. Just, I mean, I'm not going to get all the way back there, but sometimes I like to leave the splits in for that frog test. It's not going to show up because I'm not frogging it all the way back there. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and keep moving along. Where was I? Where was I? Oh, the washability? Was it the washability? Yeah, so, oh, the drape, the sag factor for bamboo. That's where I was. Have you, like, if you've worked with that bamboo, yeah, no, yep, I got another snag. So that's 3. If you've worked with the bamboo, then you know that a lot of times, depending on the project, it is going to end up hanging and just, it grows. It's the opposite of, I know it's actually exactly like the Grinch. We're shortly after Christmas time right now as I'm filming this, and the Grinch was all over the place this holiday season. And as you know, in the end of the movie, I'm not giving anything away, I hope, because it's all over the place, his heart grows 3 sizes. And that's what bamboo has a tendency to do. It just has this amazing growth factor that, if you are not prepared for it, can absolutely ruin a project. So you definitely want to make projects keeping that in mind, thinking about things like maybe sizing down, anticipating that growth factor, or, at least making patterns that have tighter stitches so there's not as much room for growth. Those kind of things are going to make your bamboo using life a lot easier. Now, on the price on this is a pretty reasonable $5.99. And of course, you can always get it on sale. Lion Brand has sales. You can sometimes get it at Michael's on sale, all of those kind of things. So it's pretty easily accessible and fairly frequently on sale. So just look for the sales if you're looking to get a larger quantity of this. In my hand, it feels very good. Considering how it felt when I first, it was not quite as soft as the full Truboo. It actually feels very nice in my hand. All right, we're going to zoom through this next row, and I will meet you right back here. All right, we are back, and there is our double crochet. Did I miss a stitch down there? I certainly did. Oh well. Fortunately, this isn't for a project, and I don't have to frog it all the way back there. But just keep in mind, I did miss that stitch. Now, you didn't necessarily catch it in that high speed, but I did have a couple more spots where it snagged and it split. So we're going to pull out our little guide here, and I highly encourage you, as I go through and rate these, figure out what score you would give it based on my workup. Obviously, you don't get to actually feel it, you don't get to actually work with it, but there are going to be some numbers in here that you can definitely make your own judgment call. Maybe if it was a fragile yarn, you'd want to give it a little bit lower concern issue. Or if it was something that was going to bleed, you might take off an extra point for that or something like that. So, make sure that you're giving it your own score as well. All right, first up, we have the feel test. It is definitely not the softest yarn I have ever felt. It is not even probably the softest cotton that I have ever felt. Let me do a side-by-side here. This is Hobby Lobby's I Love This Cotton, and it is definitely one of the softer kind of practical cottons that I have experienced that's not like a Pima cotton. And I would say these are probably fairly equivalent on that sort of a factor. So we're going to give that feel, because I would want it to be a little bit softer, we're going to give it a 3. I'm getting a little more chintzy in my scoring here. Color range. I don't know why I have an extra hanging there, but it is color range. This has 24 colors. They're pretty muted. I'm pretty disappointed overall in the color range. So for the color range, based on my new scale, which says if it's more than 75 colors, that's the 5-star. At 24 colors, you're only getting two granny squares on that. It is pretty limited, and I actually kind of don't feel too bad giving it that low of a color range because most of the colors that it does have are very muted and dull and not really rich and vibrant. Fiber content. I gotta give this 5 stars. I mean, I love the idea of a cotton and a bamboo. Does it deliver? Yeah. But the concept is good. So we're rating it based on the fiber content. Concept content. Whatever. That. Splitting. Okay, I hit at least 4 splits on that. We're going to give that a 2. I mean, that's pretty bad. I think it was probably 5 or 6. And if I take off 1 granny square per split, then we're down to a 2 for sure. Stitch definition. I mean, this is pretty good. I am really happy with the way these stitches look. So we're going to give that a 5. Drape. Now, for a cotton, which doesn't generally have a really good drape, usually cottons are a little bit more stiff, a little bit more, you know, this is a really good drape. There's barely any curl to this whatsoever. So we're going to give that a 4 out of 5. Frog test. All right, ready? Ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Okay, I'm sure if you don't hit any snags, it works perfectly fine. If you hit a snag, it's probably going to be a little bit of an issue, but we didn't hit a snag on that, so we're not gonna deduct anything on it. If you know that it tends to snag, let me know. I'm curious, but we'll give that 5 out of 5 granny squares. Oops. Now, washability as I finish this up. Fabulous. Oof, I love something that I can wash and throw in the dryer. It's super amazing for that. I wish that it was a warm water wash and not just a delicate wash, but I'll take it. I'm going to actually give that one 4.5 stars. Concerns. Okay, what concerns might I have that were not already accounted for? I don't think that I have anything overall. I mean, this is a little bit, I mean, you can see the plies in this, so it is not well twisted. I think if this was a better twisted yarn, we might have a better, less splitty result. And I'm really curious, if you know anything about yarns, let me know why bamboo yarns tend to not be twisted better. Is it because they just don't hold the twist? That I would love to know. But I didn't have any specific concerns. No concerns, so we give it a 5. Price. $5.99. Now, it seems like that would be a lot of money for something that is 232 yards, 100 grams. This feels like a small skein for 100 grams, but it packs a punch. And at $5.99, it is actually very comparable to like a Red Heart or something like that. So I'm going to not deduct anything on that price and give it that 5. All right, drum roll, please. Okay, so 40.5. So that's 4. We'll just say 4 out of 5. I mean, it's a half point. Let's be realistic here. So 4 out of 5 is the score that I give this yarn based on my review here overall. I think I would use this again. Certainly, I'm disappointed in the color choices. I think that it's an interesting, bulkier DK weight, if that makes sense. But it wasn't so miserable on the workup that I was like pulling my hair out. So I definitely think that I would use this again. for the right project, which is a good thing because I have quite a bit of it to make that summer cover up. Let me know how you scored it in the comments below. I would love to find out. And if you've used it, what you've used it for. And of course, if you have certain yarns that you would love to see me do one of these reviews, let me know that in the comments below because I'm always looking for the next latest, greatest yarn to review. Thank you so much, and we will see you later.